That takes me back to being there in Meemaw's kitchen or my granny's kitchen. Used to love when they made the chicken and dumplings. Hello, welcome back to my cooking channel. And I've had several requests for a video on my chicken and dumplings. And several people from church have asked for this. And been reluctant to do it because I never had an exact recipe. I can just remember standing in the kitchen next to my great grandmother, watching her cook them, and I know what she put in there and how she did it, but just never knew exact measurements. So as I do this video, I'm going to try to keep up with exactly how much of everything I use so that you've got something to go by. But I want to give you a little bit of history on these chicken and dumplings too. My great grandmother, she was born September the 17th, 1904. Her name was Janie Ruth Sanders. And later on in life, she married Homer D. Simmons, and they had 3 kids together. And Meemaw is what I called my great grandmother. She was always Meemaw to me. And she raised 3 kids during the Great Depression. And so this recipe for chicken and dumplings is something that she cooked back during the Great Depression. I know a lot of you, especially the younger ones, have no idea what it was like during the Great Depression. I don't know from real life experience. I just know from what I've been told and what I've read. And it was pretty rough on a lot of people. Now, Meemaw, they were country folks, so they had an advantage over people who lived in the city because, they had the garden and they had the animals and stuff. But this chicken and dumpling recipe is a very simplistic recipe when it comes to ingredients. Very few ingredients, and I'm sure that's because during the Depression they didn't have a whole lot to use. So basically, the only ingredients is a chicken, the broth that comes from boiling that chicken, salt, pepper, and flour, and that's it. Those are the only ingredients that I use in this recipe because that's what Meemaw used. I know a lot of people have different recipes for dumplings, and a lot of people claim theirs is the best. And each person has their own opinion, their own taste. But in my opinion, these will always be the best chicken and dumplings out there. And they're probably one of my favorite meals. In fact, they are one of my favorite meals. And now I think they're one of my youngest son's favorite meals too. So I hope this recipe gets passed down from generation to generation and it doesn't get lost, over the years. Meemaw was born in 1904 and she died March the 9th, 2000 at the age of 95. If she had made it just a few more months, she'd have been 96. And anyway, just wanted to give you a little bit of background on this recipe and I hope you enjoy the video. Hope you give the dumplings a try, and I hope you like them. Thanks. Meemaw was one of the kindest, sweetest people I ever knew. She loved to fish, and I loved to go fishing with her. She was fishing all the way up into her 90s, and she would wear her bonnet and her long sleeve shirts and long pants and boots. She never let anything but her face see the sun. Another thing that Meemaw could do is she could sit down at the piano and play anything by ear. She could hear a piece of music and sit down and play it. She had that talent, and to my knowledge, nobody else in the family inherited that. To start off for chicken and dumplings, you need to get you a whole chicken, preferably a whole chicken with the skin on, because you want to cover it with water and you want to boil it for at least 45 minutes until it's tender. And that also makes your broth. It makes a rich broth when you use a whole chicken with skin and everything on it. Only thing I'm going to add other than water is I'm going to put some salt. Probably about 2 teaspoons of salt I put in there. I'm gonna let it come up to a boil And then I'll turn the fire down a little bit so it doesn't boil over, and let it slow boil for, I'll probably let it go for an hour. All right, I've got the broth from boiling the chicken over here on the stove heating up. And for right now, all I'm going to add is 1 stick of butter. So a half a cup of butter. That's to add some more richness to the broth, give it some more fat and some flavor. Now we'll let that continue to slowly heat up and come to a little boil while we're getting our dumplings ready. I'm going to start off with 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Now my great-grandmother, she didn't have one of these fancy mixers. She probably would have used it if she had, but I'm going to use it. So I'm going to put 4 cups of flour. That's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And that makes 4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to put the dough hook on the mixer. Then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Put a little less if you want less salt. This is not exact. Meemaw never had exact measurements. She didn't measure anything when making dumplings. She just went by taste, and that's what I do. I'm going to mix that salt in with that flour a little bit before I add the water. Okay, I've got 2 cups of water in this measuring cup. I'll let you know how much I end up adding to get the consistency I want with this 4 cups of flour. Start off by adding 1 cup, mix it a little and see how we're looking. I'm going to add about another half a cup of water. All right, I ended up using 1 1/4 cups of water to get the consistency that I want here in the dough. And the dough is all stuck together, but it's not sticking to the bowl anymore. It's not sticking to my hand, just barely a little tacky. That's kind of the consistency I want, so that now I can roll it out. So I ended up using 4 cups of flour and 1 1/4 cups of water. And you can adjust it as you need to get the right consistency. Now I've got everything ready here. Meemaw, in my earliest memories of Meemaw making these dumplings, she never did use a pasta machine like this. She always used a husband beater like this whenever she was making them. But later in life, we got her a pasta machine like this one here, and she started using that and made it a lot easier for her, so she didn't have to roll them out by hand. Basically just pinch off some of your dough kind of in between a golf ball and a baseball sized piece of dough. And I've got my pasta machine on number 5, which is the widest setting for my roller here. And I start off with a number 5. Then I dust it with a little bit of flour. Now I'm going to turn it down to a number 3 to run it back through to make it thinner. I want these dumplings to be pretty thin because I want them to be soft and tender after they cook. So now we've got our first little piece of dumpling rolled out, and Meemaw always used a knife. I like to use a pizza cutter, makes it easier. You can cut them whatever size and shape you want. Doesn't have to be the same, doesn't have to be perfect. We're not building a piano, we're making dumplings. Then you just keep going. Keep going until you get all of your dumplings rolled and cut out. Got another piece of dough here. This one's about baseball size. I get a little bit of flour on it. Turn my cutter back to number 5, or my roller, and send this pasta dough through. This dumpling dough. A little bit of flour on it before we run it through on that thinner setting. Move our machine to number 3. Now we're going to run it through again at this thinner setting. And I always make a mess. I always get flour everywhere when I make these dumplings. See, that bigger piece of dough made more dumplings. Sprinkle a little bit of flour on this one. I'm putting this flour on them to keep them from sticking together as I lay them on my plate over here until I get ready to drop them in the broth. Because if they all stick together, that's not good. Then you got one big blob. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and keep rolling out the rest of my dough and cutting out dumplings. And when I get that finished, we'll come back and we'll dump them in or drop them in the broth one at a time. All right, our broth is up to a low boil. So I'm going to get me a spoon and taste the broth. I know I need to add black pepper because I have not added any yet. And dumplings take a lot of black pepper to make them taste right. Okay, so need a little bit of salt. I'll let you know in the comments how much salt and pepper I end up adding. I'm starting off with 4 teaspoons of salt and 4 teaspoons of pepper in these bowls. And I'll let you know what's left in these bowls so I know how much I used at the end of the video. All right, I've got all of my dumplings ready. The thickness on these is thin. It's 1/8 of an inch at the most. So I like them thin. And my Broth is boiling, so I'm going to drop these in one at a time. I drop them in one at a time so that they don't stick together once they hit that broth. I want them to stay separated, not go into a big blob. And I will stir it occasionally because I don't want them to go down there to the bottom of the pan, right on the bottom where the burner is, and scorch, burn, anything like that. Now, if you'll notice these dumplings, they've got a little bit of flour on them from where I floured them when I was rolling them out and cutting them so they wouldn't stick together. And that's going to cause this broth to thicken. So that helps thicken our broth. Some people want it to be at a rolling boil when they do this. I'd rather have it at a sort of a low to medium boil because I don't want to end up scorching dumplings or burning them. So you do what you feel comfortable doing. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what type of boil Meemaw had her broth at when she dropped her dumplings in. It's one of the things I forgot to sort of make a mental note of. And it's been, let's see, about 29 years ago that I sat there or stood there beside her at the stove and watched her make these. I'm going to give these a little stir to get those off the bottom that went in first. And I'm going to keep dropping them in. Turn my heat up just a little bit because dropping these cool dumplings in is cooling off the broth and it's stopped boiling. I turned it up a little bit so it will come back to a little boil. I drop them in. I like for them to fall all the way down in, be submerged. That way they get a coating of that broth that has all that fat in it from the chicken and from the butter. That way they don't stick together. All right, I have all my dumplings in, and I'm going to let them cook for just a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to add my chicken. The chicken that we boiled, I let it cool, and then I pulled all the chicken off the bone, got all the skin off of it, and have just clean pieces of chicken here that I will dump in with the dumplings and let them cook together. And it's 5:40 p.m. right now, so I'll let you know how long I let these dumplings go. It just depends on how you like them. Taste them or pull one out and try it every once in a while. See if it's as tender as you like it. I like for them to be really tender and soft. So mine may cook a little bit longer than other folks. But I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit more. Kind of a between a medium and medium low heat. I don't want them to get too hot and burn on the bottom of the pot. And at some point, after they've cooked for a while and after we've added the chicken in and cooked it for a little while, we'll taste of the broth and taste of one of the dumplings and see if we need to add any salt or pepper. All right, so my dumplings have been simmering for a little while, so I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken in and give them a stir. I stir them every few minutes just to make sure those on the bottom don't get burned. I'm kind of paranoid about that because one time I let them sit and forgot about them, and they scorched on the bottom. That's not a good taste. I can sort of tell by looking that they're going to need some more black pepper because I don't see much on them. And there's one thing that chicken and dumplings needs a lot of, is black pepper. But I always like to taste it as I go. I don't want to add too much because I can't take it out once I put it in. So I'll just add some every now and then, a little at a time, until I get it to where I like it. And that's the way it is with a lot of cooking, is season it, taste it, season it, get it to where you like it, where your family likes it. My family tends to like things to be salted good and have a good bit of black pepper on it. Now my oldest son, when he was little, he wouldn't eat anything with black pepper. If he saw one speck of black pepper, it was like, nope, not eating that, it's spicy. Fortunately, he's outgrown that. All right, got our chicken stirred in with the dumplings. We're going to let them cook for a few more minutes, and then we're going to give it a little taste as we stir it again. All right, our dumplings have been cooking for 15 minutes, and I'm going to stir them a little bit, and I'm going to get this little spoon over here and taste of the broth. See how it tastes. Tastes pretty good on salt. I'm going to add just a little bit more black pepper. I'm probably going to go ahead and just dump the rest of this pepper in here, so that'll be a total of 4 teaspoons of black pepper that I've used. Like I say, for you and your family, add a little bit at a time, let it cook for a couple minutes, taste it. See if you want to add more salt or pepper. I usually add quite a bit of pepper to mine, and even after I think they're good and we start eating, my wife ends up adding more black pepper on hers on the plate. All right, the dumplings have been simmering here for about 28 minutes total so far. I'm going to stir them a little bit. I'm going to pull one of the dumplings out and set it on a paper plate over here for it to cool off for a minute. And then I'm going to check it for tenderness and for taste. And then we will go from there. I think we're pretty good on the taste. And the tenderness is almost there. Probably going to go maybe another 5 minutes and check them, and I think we'll be ready to eat. All right, our dumplings have been simmering here for 35 minutes, and I think they are done. They're tender, they taste good. And take a look at that. That takes me back to being there in Meemaw's kitchen or my granny's kitchen. Used to love when they made the chicken and dumplings. One of my favorite meals. And it seems to be one of my son's favorite meals now. Maybe it'll get passed on down the line. I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner off. And I'm going to move my pot over here to the other side and let them sit there for, I don't know, about 10 minutes to cool off a little bit. And plus it'll help those dumplings soak up some more of that flavor from the broth. Thanks so much for watching my video. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you try out the recipe for the dumplings, please let me know if you like them. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave me a comment. Once again, thanks for watching.